The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. For God has founded it upon the seas. Who shall ascend the hill of the Lord? Those who have clean hands and pure hearts. They will receive blessing from the Lord. Such is the generation of those who seek the Lord. Lift up your heads, O gates, and be lifted up, O ancient doors, that the ruler of glory may come in. The Lord, strong and mighty, the Lord, mighty in battle. Who is this ruler of glory? Please be seated. Today's reading comes from the book of James, chapter 1, verses 17 through 18. Every good gift, every perfect gift comes from above. These gifts come down from the Father, the creator of the heavenly lights, in whose character there is no change at all. He chose to give us birth by his true word, and here is the result. We are like the first crop from the harvest of everything he created. Hear what the Spirit is saying to the church.
May the words of my mouth and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Please be seated. Well, over the next 4 Sundays, I'm going to be preaching a sermon series on stewardship. These sermons are part of our church's financial campaign as we prepare for the ministries we'd like to embark on in the year 2015. And today, when I preach, I want to affirm that everything is a gift from God. Next Sunday, I'll lift up and celebrate the truth that God has chosen each one of us to be stewards. The third sermon will remind us that the concerns of Christian stewards must reflect God's deep and ferocious concern for the poor. And then the final sermon will be Today Matters. So those are the 4 sermons that we'll be working through together during this financial campaign. I once heard a story of a child from a very, very affluent family who made friends with a family that was considerably less affluent. The less affluent family lived on a small family farm and supported themselves primarily from what that farm was able to produce. Well, the friendship unfolded in beautiful ways, as friendships do in that wonderful time of childhood. And as a part of their friendship, the child of affluence went to spend the weekend at the family farm with his friends. Well, the child went, and they had a wonderful time together, and when the child returned home, his parents were eager to learn how the child had experienced that time on the family farm. And as they talked back and forth, the child of affluence got a little withdrawn and was just a little embarrassed. And his parents, picking up on that, said, well, Tell me what's going on? And the child was just a little awkward, but he said, well, to tell you the truth, Mom and Dad, I experienced jealousy while I was there. Don't get me wrong, you've done wonderful things for me, but, well, we have a dog, and the dog is really very nice, but they have 3 dogs, and they have cows, and they have chickens. Now we have a pool in our backyard, and that pool goes all the way to our fence, and it's really lovely. But they have a creek running through their property, a creek that goes on for miles and miles. Now, our home is very nice and very comfortable, but oftentimes I'm alone here. No one's ever alone at my friend's house. There are always aunts and uncles stopping by. No one's ever alone on that farm. You see, the child of affluence learned something very important on that weekend visit. That child learned that it is not the things that we buy that bring us happiness and fulfillment. The child learned that the earth is the Lord's, and that there is a fullness in the beauty of creation, and he experienced that powerfully and wonderfully. The child learned that the very best gifts in life come from God. In the warmth of a sun, in the beauty of the earth, in a planet that teems with abundance, that food is present. That child learned a lot. Well, everything I ever needed to know about Christian stewardship, I learned from National Public Radio. Don't worry, I'm not going to go all Ira Glass on you. It was about 20 years ago. Terry Gross was hosting the show Fresh Air, and she was interviewing a pastor who just retired. His name was Reverend Johnny Ray Youngblood. He was the leader of St. Paul's Community Baptist Church in Brooklyn long ago. When Youngblood came to the church, it was a struggling, dying institution. And over the course of his career, it transformed. It became a vital center for religious and for spiritual activity. The church created a school. The church created many innovative programs that brought African American men back into the community of faith. The church built housing units in the city of Brooklyn, replacing the brothels and the numbers joints that had been so prevalent. So it's a powerful story. It's written in the book Upon This Rock. I'd recommend that to you for your reading. But during the interview, Reverend Youngblood described their ministries. He talked about how their church hosted numerous 12-step programs so that people who were addicted to drugs or alcohol or sex found support for the transformation of their lives from despair toward hope. He spoke of the church offering job trainings so people could learn employable skills. They offered soup kitchens for those who were desperate for food. He spoke of Bible studies that helped transform despair into positive expressions of hope and life. Well, it was a wonderful interview. And toward the end of it, Youngblood mentioned stewardship. And Terry Gross got enraged. She said, no, you can't possibly ask the people, the poorest people in America living in one of the most desperate of situations for money. Can you? And Youngblood responded, I most certainly do. And then he went on to say that the problem in Brooklyn, as he saw it, was not a lack of money, but it was what people were doing with their money that was killing them. He offered to take Terry Gross back to Brooklyn, telling her that on any street corner, we'd find a liquor store doing a brisk business. He reminded us that anywhere, anytime, you can gamble to your heart's content. He said that prostitution was rampant and that the drug dealers had pockets full of cash. What I learned in that interview is that Christian stewardship, rightly understood, is moving the precious resources of any community away from those things that are destructive and toward those things that give life and hope and wholeness and holiness. The task of Christian stewardship is moving our resources toward behaviors that affirm life and create the blessedness that we want for ourselves and we want to share with others. Now, it would be very easy for us to think that the problems of inner city Brooklyn 25 years ago are so extreme that they have nothing to do with those of us who dwell in the fair city of Concord, New Hampshire. But I would contend that we are plagued by the same problems, even here, even now. Consider, if you would, the following statistics. 82% of Americans say that they are very anxious about money. 65% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 32% of us could not handle a sudden emergency of $5,000 or more. And in case we didn't already know this, credit cards are killing us. 63% of us do not pay them off at the end of the month. We spend 12 to 18% more when we pay by credit card than we would if we paid by cash. The average family has $15,000 of debt on a credit card. And that's on top of a mortgage and on top of a car payment. No, the same things that caused Brooklyn to struggle 30 years ago are issues that we deal with. It's just a little more hidden, a little less obvious. We find ourselves living between a rock and a hard place. A rock of materialism, the mistaken belief that we are what we have. And the hard place of consumerism, that is the demonic notion that if we buy things, we will be happy. I pray for you. I pray for you a Christian faith that is strong enough to live between that rock and that hard place and not to crumble, not to be engulfed by the values of a secular society that will cause us great harm, lest we stand with resolve and courage and confidence. If we really believed that everything is a gift from God, we would appreciate all of life's blessings deeply. And we would find a deep inner contentment in those blessings. I believe that the first step of Christian stewardship is learning how to live on 80% of our income. If we can do that, we're standing against the pressures and the temptations of this secular time that says, buy this, want this, have more, have more. The second step of Christian stewardship, I believe, is being responsible as we save. If we live on 80%, we should save 10%. We should put it away in a safe place that would be available to us, because the time will come when, despite our best planning, there are emergencies, there are complications. And I believe that the third step of Christian stewardship is giving 10% away. You see, God does not pour out God's abundance upon us so that we can hoard it as a private treasure. God blesses us precisely so we can be a blessing to the people around us. And I believe that a deep Christian faith can keep us from being pushed around by both materialism and consumerism. And maybe the greatest gift the church family can give to one another is encouragement to live with that kind of strength and resolve amid all the pressures of life. Well, we're embarking on our financial campaign this Sunday. And over the past few years, we've had a little bit of a struggle. Our income has dropped just a little bit each year, and our expenses have gone up just a little bit each year. Mostly the drop in income has come through death. Every year the expenses have creeped up just a little bit. Nothing major, nothing abnormal, just the normal increases that we've all seen everywhere. Well, they've come here as well. So I think the best we can tell as we stand here on the end of October, that as we look at 2015, we're about $60,000 out of balance. So we've put together a little stewardship challenge. I hope you got one as you came in. It was, it looks a little bit like our church newsletter, but we've put some thoughts together, and I hope you'll read through that and be aware of what's going on. I think the role of a leader is to tell you the truth, and I just did that. And I think the role of the leader is to suggest a plan that can help us respond to our truth. And then the role of the leader is to invite you to participate in that plan. Well, here's my plan. If 60 of us would consider increasing our contribution by $20 a week, the deficit would be gone. Our church would return to its strong financial foundation, and all the important ministries that we share will continue and will thrive. Now, I know that for some of us, this challenge is far too great. And if that represents your circumstances, please know that you are a valued member of this community, and your ongoing presence and enthusiasm for our mission and our work together is essential. And whatever you could do to be helpful would be a blessing. We are, however, at the same time, confident that for some of us, this challenge is well within reach. And if that represents your circumstances, please consider responding to that challenge positively. If 60 of us, either individuals or families, can increase by $20 a week, we'll be able to maintain our strong witness. We'll be able to be fully supportive of the work of the United Methodist Church, not just here in New Hampshire, but all around the world. And we'll be able to put a building reserve away on a regular basis because we know that this 50-year-old building is going to have repairs. We just don't know what they are yet. So we want to be prepared. Well, we don't have pledge cards here today. We'll be distributing them soon. But I would like to ask you over the next few weeks to think about your stewardship, to contemplate your commitment. And while we think and while we pray, let's remember that when the church is bold in faith, it makes a big difference in people's lives. When we are bold in faith, we can help people remember that the very best things in life are not the things that we buy. When we are bold in faith, we direct our resources, the resources of our community, away from the things that destroy and toward those that give life and hope. I'd like to end my sermon with a brief steward's declaration. And I invite you to let these words dwell within you. As a Christian steward, recognizing that the earth and the fullness thereof is entrusted to us by God, that we are called to be stewards of the earth and all of its resources, and that our lives come from God, we prayerfully consider the following steps in our stewardship journey. I will commit myself to personal growth and renewal through prayer, Bible study, meditation, and participation in small group experiences. I will commit myself to regular and responsible participation in the community of faith by attending worship and participating in study and mission activities. I will accept accountability to God, the Creator and owner, for my treatment of the world, seeking to reduce my impact on the environment. I will commit myself to live a life of creative simplicity and to share what God has entrusted to me with the world's poor. I will join with others and help to bring about a more just society in which each person has access to the needed resources for physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual growth. I will be accountable to God in my occupation. and in so doing, I will seek to avoid the creation of or participation in products or services that harm others. I will affirm God's gift of my body and commit myself to proper nourishment and physical well-being, including rest and exercise. I will commit myself to examine my relations with others and to relate to others with love and with concern. The earth is the Lord's. Everything that we have is a gift. Might we respond boldly in faith? Might we make a difference for Jesus Christ here and now? Amen.